Hello there, welcome to episode 48 of Never Mind the Bullens, your bite-sized Everton podcast and vodcast. My name's Mike Peters, recording this in the wake of our exit from the FA Cup at the hands of the runaway juggernaut that is Manchester City. Lots to pick out of obviously a disappointing evening at Goodison. Lots of positives to pick out of it, and I have to say, not really many negatives, to be honest with you, which is a weird thing to say after a defeat, but. It has to be put in context, doesn't it? You know, when you are playing Manchester City, and we know that they're just an absolute machine at the minute and have been for a few months, that, you know, you're going to have your work cut out to get anything out of them. We know, obviously, played them relatively recently at Goodison and obviously got a 3-1 defeat. And, well, you know, we were never getting anything out of that game, even though we acquitted ourselves fairly well. I thought we acquitted ourselves better. Last night we had a plan. It was quite obvious, you know, with the injuries that we've got, we're sort of on our upwards in terms of the squad, particularly in attacking midfield and attacking positions. Obviously, no Abdoulaye Doucouré, no James, etc. To name but two. So we had to have a plan, and it was obvious that we did have one, and it was executed really well for 80 plus minutes. We really did. You know, it was to stifle them, to sit in, to hit them on the break when we could, with the fullbacks of players to get forward. And it was lovely to see Richarlison playing a little bit more centrally as he did when Duncan Ferguson was in charge of those few games just before Carlo came in, and getting him on the ball more. You know, and we know how influential he can be, and he's in a really good sort of run of form at the minute, and. You know, that's really, really pleasing because we know he can influence games from there, and maybe that is a way that we need to play over the last 8 to 10 sort of matches of the season. Must mention João Virginia. Obviously had to come in and deputise for Jordan Pickford after him getting injured against Burnley last week. And I thought he did extremely well, and I think, you know, that's a general consensus. He dealt with everything he had to deal with, made all the saves that he needed to make. The save from Raheem Sterling was a particular highlight. He was very unlucky with Ilkay Gundogan's goal, tipping the ball onto the crossbar, and it just rebounds to Gundogan, and he nods it in. Hey, nothing you can do about that. He did everything he could do as a keeper to prevent that goal occurring. I think he came and flapped at missed one punch, but at least he was confident enough to come and have a go at it. Didn't quite get the contact, but hey, he's a young lad, and I think, you know, it's difficult to judge him on the basis of a game and a half, but he looks like he's got something about him, and that's really pleasing because obviously, you know, there were sort of horror stories, I think, when he went on loan to Reading last year, that it was a bit of a disaster, and he was getting brickbats from all the Reading supporters at the Medeski, and it was not a pleasant experience for him. But, you know, I'm sure now he looks on it as sort of relatively character building now, and, you know, he's in the team, and hopefully, you know, one of the two goalkeepers will be fit. I think it sounds like they will be for the Crystal Palace game in a fortnight's time, Easter Monday. But if he has to play another game, I think he's acquitted himself well enough to say to more than deserve an opportunity. Alan as well, I was critical of him after the Burnley game. Felt he was a bit of a headless chicken. He wasn't quite at the pace of the game. He did miss, obviously, Abdoulaye Doucouré in there with him last Saturday in terms of that energy and all the rest of it, and he was caught, on the ball a couple of times. The game passed him by. I thought he did extremely well, given that he got booked sort of relatively early on in the game with it was a bit of an odd challenge, even though I found myself agreeing with Steve McManaman, which I generally don't want to do, but he was right. It was a bit of an odd challenge that he made. I think it was on Gundogan or Bernardo Silva, I forget now, but he made that, and then he's walking the tightrope then, and text flying backwards and forwards in the second half when he made another challenge, and thinking, ooh, one more and he could be off here. But I thought he did extremely well, and was that the base that we needed him to be, you know, that sort of the keystone around which the rest of the team is built. Also got to mention Big Ben Godfrey as well. Another outstanding performance, really. I think what impressed me last night about him was the fact that there was an incident in the first half where Mason Holgate goes in on Phil Foden, and Holgate's had a tendency to do this season, to rush of blood, go charging into tackles, and he was, you know, on another day, Foden goes down, and Phil Foden, to be fair to him, had the incident the other week with Alex McCarthy against Southampton, where it's quite blatantly a penalty, and all of us would have thought that. And if he'd have gone down, City probably would have been given a penalty, and rightly so. But what impressed me about Godfrey was that he didn't do that. His job was clearly to, right, if those players, and they attack from all parts, City, as we know, they're an outstanding team, as evidenced by the bench last night. The comparisons, it was just insane, the amount of quality they had on the bench to where we were in terms of the players that we obviously have missing. He was obviously just hustling and harrying the likes of Raheem Sterling and even the likes of Kyle Walker and all these players getting forward. He was trying to, Bernardo Silva, Gundogan, all of these, stifling them, just not diving in, having the presence of mind not to go jumping in and making silly challenges. And I think it's fantastic. Obviously he's been called up to the England under-21s, but I don't think it's going to be that long before, if he continues in this vein of form, that he's going to be called up to the senior squad, and well deserved it will be as well. I don't think there's many more superlatives that we can give him. I mean, the money we spent on him, 20 million quid, looks an absolute steal. And if rumours are to be believed, one of the key sort of points of strengthening in the summer will be a right back, and Max Aarons at Norwich seems to be one that's very sort of hotly tipped. If he's half as good as Godfrey's been so far, then we'll be absolutely made up, won't we? I said we came in with a plan, and we lost to an outstanding team, a team that is running away with the Premier League. They've got the chance of winning the quadruple, and there's no disgrace in that. We've gone from one extreme to the other, in the last sort of 3 games, where Chelsea, where we did all right, and they just had far too much for us on the day, and they were a better team, and they were coming at us from all corners, and we lost. And you say, hey, listen, you're beaten by a better team. Burnley was a very disappointing performance, and we're beaten, on paper, we were a better team than Burnley, but we just did not perform on the day at all. Again, last night is the same kind of thing. You're beaten by a team that's running away with everything, that is flattening everything that comes into their way. There's no, it's disappointing, because obviously you want to go as far as you can in all competitions, don't just mind the FA Cup, but you want to go as far as you can. But to lose to a better team, you just have to say, hey, that's football. Unfortunately, that's competitive sport. But let's put this defeat in context and say, right, we've got to 2 quarterfinals of both the domestic cup competitions this season, and that's an improvement on where we've been in past years generally. And I think it just shows, obviously, the last night was that was just kind of, we kept in it for 80 odd minutes, and we were sort of thinking, we've got to get through this in full time. If we'd gone to extra time, we'd have had no chance, because they'd have just rolled the dice, they'd have upped the gears, and we would have lost anyway. I think I just don't. We would have had the legs to keep up with them for 120 minutes. But the United game against in the Carabao Cup quarter-final before Christmas was obviously a really disappointing. We didn't really play well that night. They came out of the blocks like nobody's business, out of the traps. But put it and say, right, hang on, this is with a relatively small change to the squad in terms of players that have come in. Obviously, we've got rid of a number of players, but with these changes that we've made, we've got to the quarterfinals of both the cup competitions. We're sat 7th in the league, with the last sort of quarter of the season to go. Actually, if you'd offered us that at the start of the season, given the way that we ended last season, and you're thinking, well, the amount of changes that we all knew that needed to be made to the team, we'd probably gone, actually, that's progress. And it is progress. All right, we haven't won anything yet again. It's another year where we haven't won a trophy, and there'll be certain factions of supporters that will revel in that from other clubs and all the rest of it, and we just have to take that on the chin. But actually, relative to last season and relative to the last couple of years, that is an enormous amount of progress, and it makes me very excited for where we'll be this time next year. And with another 3-4 players into that squad, real quality players to have competition for places, defensively, midfield, and particularly I think in attack, then you say, well, how far could we go? Can we get to that next stage? Can we get to semi-finals? Get to a final, and then it's anybody's game, isn't it? So we've got to put this defeat, as disappointing as it might be on the face of it, in context against how far we've come. Now we've got a 2-week break. A chance to sort of regroup. League form's been a bit inconsistent, particularly at home, and the chance to get a few players fit and get some bodies back in the squad. Obviously, we've seen the footage of Jean-Philippe Gbamin now with the squads all on an individual basis, and that's fantastic. And if we can get, like James, obviously him fit, the goalkeepers back in, and another couple of bodies, obviously Abdoulaye Doucouré's out for a little bit longer, then, we've got a chance to have a really, really strong end to the season. Complete focus on the league and really finish the season strongly, and that's what we want. Finish ourselves as high. But it'd be such a shame to get to this stage, 29 whatever games into the league season, got ourselves in such a good position, and then to blow it, we've got to make sure that we finish it strongly. So hopefully we can start with that against Crystal Palace on Easter Monday. Obviously, no episode next week because we haven't got a game. So enjoy the international break as much as you can. Have a good Easter weekend, and I will speak to you after the Crystal Palace game on Easter Monday. This has been a Top Content production. And until next time, come on you Blues.